Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to go on with the third chapter of the book Creative Mind and Success, and it's titled Man's Place in Creation, which again means your place in creation. So don't just listen to it thinking of other men and women, but include yourself, because you're part of the greater whole, and that is how you'll find your power. Now, Ernest started this chapter out by saying, but where does man come in? Well, he simply is. And therefore, it follows that he too is made out of God. Now, that means you. Isn't that beautiful? You are made out of God, since God or Spirit is all there is. Being made out of God, he must partake of his nature, for we are made in his image. Man is a center of God in God. Whatever God is in the universal, man must be in the individual world. The difference between God and man is one of degree and not of quality. Man is not self-made, he is made out of God. The question might arise, why did God do this? No living person can answer this question. This is something that is known only of the Father. We might suppose that God made man to live with him and to enjoy with him, to be one with the Father. It is true, indeed, that those who have felt this most deeply have had a corresponding spiritual power that leads us to suppose that God really did make man as a companion. Man is the individual and God is the universal. As the Father had life within himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life within himself. Man's mind is made out of God's mind, and all that man is or ever will be, all that he has or ever will have, must partake of the divine nature. Man did not make it so, but it is so, and he must accept the fact and see what he can do with it. If he has the same power in his individual life that God has in the universal, then this discovery will mean freedom from all bondage, when he learns how to use his power. As God governs his universal world, so will man govern his individual world, always subject to the greater law and life. This could not be otherwise if we realize what follows from it. For so realizing, we find ourselves living in a very different world from the one in which we thought we were living. God governs not through physical law as a result, but first by inner knowing, and then the physical follows. In the same way, man governs his world by the process which we call, for want of a better name, the power of his thought. Man's inner life is one with the Father. There can be no separation, for the self-evident reason that there is nothing to separate him from God, because there's nothing but life. The separation of two things implies putting a different element between them, but as there is nothing different from God, the unity of God and man is firmly established forever. Now, I underlined that line because to me that's very fascinating and absolutely incredible. The unity of God and man is firmly established forever. In other words, the unity of God and you is firmly established forever. Just by contemplating this statement and aiming it at yourself, including yourself in this equation, should transform your whole mind. It should really make you think of your own existence in a much more powerful and different way. At least it did for me, and hopefully for you as well. Now he went on to say, "My Father and I are one," is a simple statement of a great soul who perceived life as it really is, and not from the mere standpoint of outer conditions. Taken as the starting point that man has the same life as God, it follows that he uses the same creative process. Everything is one, comes from the same source and returns again to it. The things which are seen are not made of things which do appear. What we see comes from what we do not see. This is the explanation of the whole visible universe, and it is the only possible explanation. As God's thought makes worlds and peoples them with all living things, so does our thought make our world and peoples it with all the experiences we have had. By the activity of our thought, things come into our life, and we are limited because we have not known the truth. We have thought that outside things controlled us, when all the time we have had that within which could have changed everything and given us freedom from bondage. The question then naturally arises, why did God create man and make him a free agent? If God had created us in such a way as to compel us to do or to be anything that was not of our choosing, we should not have been individuals at all. We should be automatons. Since we know that we are individuals, we know that God made us thus, and we are just discovering the reason why. Let any man wake up to this, the greatest truth in all ages, and he will find it will answer all questions. He will be satisfied that things are what they are. He will perceive that he may use his own God-given power to his work, to think and to live, that he will in no way hinder the greater law from operating through him. According to the clearness of his perception and the greatness of his realization of this power, will he provide within himself a starting point through which God may operate. There will no longer be a sense of separation, but in its place will come that divine assurance that he is one with God, and thus will he find his freedom from all suffering, whether it be of body, mind, or estate. Now that's the end of the chapter. One thing I wanted to point out is that the first few chapters are dealing heavily with the spiritual side of life. So for anyone that is perhaps a little impatient and wants to know how to become a success, because the title of the book implies it, if you stick to it, we'll get to that very soon, and then he's gonna go on for most of his book concerning the law and how to apply it in your life. But this right here, this stuff about God and unity of life is essential for us finding the most optimistic frame of mind that we can have. Because by being in an optimistic frame of mind, you will be able to attract the best ideas and the most powerful ideas that will help you to actually become a success to begin with. This is what we want to understand by this spiritual introduction of life itself, is that we first want to find a perception that will make us look at ourselves and the world in which we find ourselves in a more powerful way. And what better way and more powerful way is there than to understand your unity with God, with the spirit behind all of creation. That's what we're getting at with these chapters. So that's your place in creation. It's the fact that you are already one with the spirit of all life, and now you want to start learning how to work together with the same spirit that creates and sustains the universe. And once you do that, obviously earthly goals, whatever those goals are, seem so small in comparison. And then you realize if the spirit of life can create the universe and sustain it, it must be able to create and sustain success in my own sphere of activity. So you become way more confident in your own abilities to succeed and get things done once and for all, because your perception has shifted from a limited being, perhaps full of doubts and worries, to a being of unlimited possibilities and powers. Now, let's go on with the fourth chapter. It's a small one, but it's called The Beginning of Understanding. They started this out by saying, man is beginning to realize that he has a life within himself as the great gift of God to him. If he really has a life, it is the same nature as the life of God. If he is an individual and has the right of self-choice, which constitutes individuality, then it follows that he can do with his life what he wants to do. He can make out of himself that which he wishes. Freedom is his, but this freedom is within law and never outside it. Man must obey law. If he disobeys it, it has to act as law, and so acting has to punish him. This he cannot change, but must submit to it. Freedom comes to the individual from understanding the laws of his own life and conforming to them, thereby subjecting them to his use, to the end of health, happiness, and success. Law obtains throughout all nature, governing all things, both the seen and the unseen. Law is not physical or material, but mental and spiritual. Law is God's method of operation. We should think of God as the Great Spirit, whose sole impulse is love, freely giving of himself to all who ask and refusing none. God is our Father in every sense of the term, watching over, caring for, and loving all alike. While all is love, yet in order that things may not be chaotic, all is governed by law, and as far as you and I are concerned, this law is always mental. Now that is the end of chapter 4. Again, what are we talking about here? Well, we have the right of self-choice, that much we do know. But he said a few points, or at least one, that is very fascinating and important to understand. That we have the power to give life. We have life within ourselves. Then he said that we can create what we want. We can do with our life what we want to do, and we can make out of ourselves what we wish. Do you understand that that's what's happening? If you have a thought in your mind, a clear vision that you've built through your imagination, that exists within yourself, and you're going to bring it out of yourself into concrete reality, that's what we essentially mean with making dreams a reality. It came from you, from the depths of your being. So no matter what your goals are, if you follow the law, you will get results, because you'll understand how an invisible idea turns into concrete reality. Of course, the rest of this book will indicate how that is done, but that is the premise that we're working with, that you have this power within you and you can prove this to yourself, so you don't have to doubt in it. You can step out and do it, make stuff happen. That's what I've been doing so far, and I'll keep doing it. I imagine whatsoever I desire, and I know I have to be the one that gives expression to it. So therefore I'm giving it a life in my physical world, and it comes from out of myself, from out of my imagination, first and foremost. If you understand this power, you will see how to make improvements in any area of your life. It will no longer be mysterious. We no longer get stuck in wondering, how can I get started? How do I get this done? How can I become rich and successful, this and that? You just understand, I will make it out of myself. I will draw it out from the depths of my own consciousness by using my ability to imagine and think and feel in certain ways, so that they become expressed with and through me. That's the beautiful part about having this creative mind, which can create success for you. Now, I also wanted to let people know that stumble upon any of these videos that I do have a playlist on my channel through which this series will be organized, and all the other chapters as well. So in case you were wondering where are the rest of the videos, well, if you take a look on my channel, you'll be able to find that playlist. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.